Hello everyone, Cool Dude Cobramai here to get today with another episode of Choose Your Character. And before we start, I would just like to apologize about my lack of uploads recently. I think it's been about a month since my Dr. Eggman video. Simply put, there's just been a lot of stuff in real life that's been keeping me from making videos as frequently as I want. My job, school, stuff like that. So I apologize of the lack of uploads, and I hope that I will continue to upload more videos at a more frequent rate than I have been. So thank you guys for checking this one out. It means a lot. Today on Choose Your Character, we will be going over a gag character that I had suggested to me by Nebby on one of my YouTube videos, and that is the car from the Rocket League game. So without further ado, let's get into it. Do keep in mind, just like my Bandana Waddle Dee and Eggman videos, I'm using notes rather than a script this time. So if I kind of stutter a few times, that's why. Rocket League is a game where you just play as cars, and these cars play soccer. It's a high-speed, kind of racing sports game, and there's lots of explosions when you get a goal, and just a bunch of chaos overall. Frankly put, I don't think that the car from Rocket League is ever going to get into Smash Brothers, but the whole point of this series is to cover the characters that no one else is talking about. So, yeah, I figured that this would be a pretty interesting character. It took me a while to come up with a moveset for him, but I really hope that you guys will like it, so let's get into it. For his appearance, the Rocket League car's default costume would be the blue car that you see in the game. I don't know a whole lot about this game. I own it, but I don't play it that often. But from what I understand, this blue car is kind of the default costume of sorts for the car. The cars in the game are customizable, so that's why. Then the alternate costumes, the potential for these are essentially endless. So, for all I know, the alternate costumes for this car, if it ever got into Smash, they could just be different models of cars found in the game, just different paint jobs on the cars, different stuff like that. They can't make the models too different because that would have hitbox issues, but other than that, I think that the potential for different alternate costumes is almost endless. For his stance, the Rocket League car would just stand still, and it would slightly shake from the engine going in it. I just think it's kind of funny to imagine on Battlefield this car kind of rattling from the engine against Mario or something, but that's just me, I guess. For his idle animations, the first one consists of the car revving its engine and its headlights turn on and off. It was kind of hard to think of some unique stuff that a car can do that can make it look expressive, so I kind of had to make some stretches here. And for his other idle animation, small flames kind of emit from the car's exhaust pipe. Like, the cars in Rocket League go very fast, so I think that this would be just an interesting way of showing that. And for his victory screens, I had some fun making these. The first one would have the Rocket League car, who I'm going to refer to as just Car from this point forward. For his first victory screen, the car would zoom by the camera before screeching to a halt and taking the pose from the victory screen of Rocket League before his name flashes on the screen. The second pose, in the far distance off of the victory screen, the car hits a ball into a goal, which then results in a huge explosion launching the car towards the screen. In Rocket League, once you score a goal, there's a pretty decent-sized explosion that occurs on screen, so I think that this would be pretty neat. And for his final one, I couldn't really think of anything else too flashy, so I just put that the car drives by rapidly before hitting the soccer ball from the game and towards the camera. In hindsight, this moveset doesn't incorporate the soccer ball a whole lot. It's more based around the different power-ups found in the game. But yeah, there's the soccer ball is still in the moveset, but I just wish I could have found a better way to incorporate it. And his victory fanfare would be the kind of win jingle from Rocket League. It could be, if I don't exactly remember what it is, but if there's a song, it could just be a shortened version of that. I'll play that for you guys right now. And yeah, that just about wraps up all the stuff with his cosmetics. So without further ado, let's get on to the actual moveset for this character. Starting things off with his jab, the Rocket League car is kind of a character similar to the likes of Roy and Chrom, where their jab only has one hit. As stupid as it sounds, the jab for this car, it just kind of nudges forward a little bit, kind of maybe tilting to show some sort of animation. A lot of the other moves are more expressive than this, but I couldn't really think of much for a jab. The jab itself doesn't really combo into anything. It's more of a poking tool. For the forward tilt, one of the spike power-ups punctures through the car's grille and pokes foes. This is a attack with decent range, and it does extra damage or KO power if you hit them with the tip of the spike. But other than that, it's a pretty basic kind of stab move. For his up tilt, the car hops upward using his boosters, and he launches foes upward on the way up. This attack would have very little knockback power, and it would combo into itself, kind of like how Mario's up tilts could combo into itself in Smash 4. But it can only combo into itself a couple times, if that. And finishing off his tilts with his down tilts, the boxing glove power-up appears from his side and sweeps at the enemy's feet, knocking them down, or just dealing damage, I mean. And for his dash attack, the car would rev forward and pop a wheelie, and it would hit foes while it's moving forward. So yeah, in this we had, in terms of his basic attacks, there's quite a few just basic car things, but at the same time, I'm trying to incorporate the power-ups into his moveset, which took me a while to think of it, but in the end it all worked out. So with his basic attacks out of the way, let's move on to his smashes. Starting things off with his forward smash, the car would use his boxing glove power-up and just do a simple kind of straight punch forward. I like to imagine this as the longer you charge it, the further the punch attack goes, but the launch distance doesn't change. So imagine it at full charge, it has about the same range as Simon Belmont's forward smash, but without charge it's just kind of like Little Max. And it kills you at decent percent. It obviously launches you forward, but other than that there's not much to it. It has quite a bit of end lag, so it's not safe on shield, but other than that it's pretty basic. For his up smash, the car coats himself in the spike power-ups and performs another upwards hop. This is kind of like Bowser's up smash, where he goes into his shell and pushes himself up to knock opponents upward. But I think it kind of works for the car. I don't know. This is one of the more difficult moves to come up with. You'll notice that quite a few of these moves have stretches, which I'm okay with personally. I'm more amazed that I could find a moveset for this thing at all, honestly. But I digress. And for his down smash, the car uses his boosters to quickly perform a donut spin, and he just knocks any opponent he hits at a downward angle. This is the quickest of his smash attacks, but it also has the least range. So it's generally a pretty safe move. Low risk, decent reward. It's still a smash attack, so it'll be good if you can get it off. And that wraps up his smash attacks. So let's move on to his aerial attacks. Let's begin with his neutral air, as usual. When he does this, the spike power-up, which is one of the power-ups I use quite a bit for this moveset, in case you haven't noticed. The spikes encase the car for a second. This is not a multi-hit attack, but rather if you hit the opponent, they just get knocked away. Simple as that, basically. One sec, something popped up on my computer. Alright, there we go. By the way, if my audio's kind of bad, my mic stopped working a while ago, so I'm just using the one built into my computer. But I digress. For his forward air, the car performs the aerial spin maneuver that we see he can do in Rocket League. except he does it a bit faster. It's kind of basically a drill motion of sorts, and it's a multi-hit attack. And yeah, it's just overall, it has decent kill potential off stage, but other than that, it's a pretty basic forward air. It doesn't do anything too crazy. It'll kill you at about 80 or 90, something like that. Now going on to his up air. For this, the car performs a backflip like he can do in Rocket League, and in the air quickly. The animation is almost identical to Mario's up air, except instead of a kick, it's the entire car spinning like a wheel. So it has very little knockback, but it can combo into itself as well because of that. So it's pretty good to rack up damage with. Speaking of damage, it does roughly 9 to 12 damage. I don't like to make specific numbers because I'll leave that up to your guys' imagination to think how powerful the move could be. But I just like to give a range. For his down air, the car he uses the boosters beneath him. He tilts the boosters that are on his back below him, and he uses them to shoot a big blast of fire beneath them. The easiest move to compare this to would probably be Rob's down air. It spikes if you hit it right, and it kind of boosts him up a bit. But other than that, it's pretty slow, so you're probably not going to hit it a whole lot, because the car is especially not a very floaty character. He's pretty heavy, actually, but we'll get into that a bit later. So yeah, it's basically just there so he has a move that can spike. And finishing off his aerials with his back air. For this attack, the car shoots fire from the same boosters behind him, launching him forward. This is kind of like Corrin's back air, where she uses her wings to propel herself forward as she hits the enemy behind her. Yeah, I think it's a pretty basic move. It kills you earliest. It kills you the earliest out of all of his aerials, doing so at about 70 to 80%. But back airs are usually the strongest aerial attack that a character has in their arsenal, so I think that's fitting. And while we're on the topic of aerial movement, I'll just get this out of the way. The car is one of the heavier characters, and he falls pretty fast, and he's not floaty. He's not as heavy as Bowser or King K. Rool, but he's one of the lighter heavyweights, I could say, but he falls pretty fast. And his jumps aren't floaty, they're more stiff. But yeah, let's go on to his grabs. It took me a while to figure out how I could get the car to grab someone, but in the end I think I decided on his magnet power-up being the grab animation. So when you press the button, the car's magnet power-up ejects from it, and if there's an enemy in front of him, the magnet starts glowing and it holds them captive. That's just the animation, though. There's really nothing special about it. And for the pummel, off the other side of the car, his boxing glove power-up comes out and kind of pokes at the enemy a few times with his fist. It does about 2% damage, just standard pummel stuff. And yeah, let's get into his throws. His forward throw, a lot of these are kind of the same thing, but we'll get into that as we go. His forward throw, the car uses his boosters to launch himself into the enemy he's holding with the magnet very quickly. This is just a standard forward throw. It's nothing too crazy. It's not really combo throw material, and it's definitely not kill throw material. It's just more of a get out of my face maneuver. Moving on to his up throw, the car uses his boxing glove to uppercut the opponent. This is probably the closest thing he has to a combo throw because it doesn't really launch the opponent too far, but to where you could short hop and maybe get one up air in on it. But other than that, it's pretty underwhelming. His two better throws are his back throw and his down throw, which, starting things off with his back throw, the car just quickly boosts behind the opponent and rams them from behind. And this is his kill throw. It kills you at about 85 to 90%. It's pretty good. So yeah, definitely, if you get a throw off, I would recommend using that move. And his down throw is actually pretty good because it racks up damage quickly. What happens is the car runs over the opponent, and it uses his sorry about that, I stuttered there. he basically just starts driving and starts running over the enemy with his tires. It does about 10%, but it does not launch the opponent very far at all. And it has some end lag after the throw itself. Not enough to where they could punish you after you throw them, but just enough to where you can't use it as a combo because it's already there to rack up damage. And with that done, let's get into the meat of the moveset, the special moves. These are kind of where I had some... these were pretty easy compared to the rest of his moveset, so I hope you guys like them. For his neutral special, which is, in my opinion, I think I made this the most complex out of them all. It's the boost. So there's multiple points to this move. I'll try to cover them as clear as possible, but please, if you have any questions about it, or just any moveset in general, just ask me in the comments, and I'll do my best to explain it. So yeah, when Carr presses the neutral special, he zooms forward with his boosters on, and if you hold down this button, he will continue moving at the same really fast speed until he runs out of fuel. And the fuel reserves refill over time when you're not using boost. It takes it about 10 seconds to fully refill. So yeah, while you're boosting, the only attacks the car can use are his dash attack when he's on the ground or any of his aerials. And other than the attack limitation, your maneuvers in the air are basically limitless. You can still jump, you can shield to cancel the move, or you can air dodge to cancel the move. But if you jump while using this move, your jump will have more horizontal movement, so you could potentially recover with this move if you still had your double jump. So yeah, I think that's pretty neat. And one of the last things to mention about this move is that, well, I guess I already said it, that this move can be cancelled if you press the shield or air dodge button, or if you run out of fuel. Moving on to his side special. This is the one and only time the soccer ball is incorporated into his moveset. And what the soccer ball does, it probably would have worked better for a down special, but I guess it doesn't really matter now. Oh, excuse me. When it's used, the attack summons this giant soccer ball. It looks almost exactly like the soccer ball from the Rocket League game itself. And the ball doesn't do anything until you hit it. But when you attack it, it acts like the soccer ball item that's already in Smash, where it acts as its own projectile, essentially. It'll just become a moving hitbox. Not exactly like a projectile, but it'll just be an obstacle, more or less. But yeah, it's bigger than the soccer ball, so it's easier to hit opponents with, but it's actually weaker than the soccer ball item in terms of damage, because that would be a bit overpowered in my opinion if he could just summon that soccer ball item. If you use the side special while the soccer ball is already on the field, he will perform like a little spin maneuver. This doesn't do any damage to the opponent if it hits, but if you hit the soccer ball with it, it'll launch it pretty far and just directly forward. So yeah, it's basically just a setup projectile move. You could get some pretty interesting setups with that. So yeah, that's his side special. Probably out of all the moves, it's probably the least developed. I could have spent more time on it, but I'm fine with what it is. Moving on to the most basic of his moves, his recovery, which is the Tornado power-up from Rocket League. When it's used, the car spins around in the Tornado power-up. It's the exact same thing, essentially. If the soccer ball's on the field, it'll get sucked in there, too. It'll actually deal some damage to the opponent if the soccer ball's on the field. So just try to keep the soccer ball on the field as much as possible. The damage and knockback is equivalent to Hero's up special, the fully charged version. I think it's called Kaswoosh. It can kill you by just if you're off stage and you maneuver it at the right angle, but it's more of a recovery first tool because it has quite a bit of startup compared to most other up specials. So yeah, once the tornado is done spinning, it launches the car directly upwards and he can just recover from there. It sends him into free fall. Like most recovery moves, but yeah. And then finishing things off with his down special, it's the Spike power-up, and what it does is when you input the down special, spikes appear on the car, just all around its body. And what these spikes do, they're essentially kind of a buff to car. And if you deal physical damage to any opponent, so not projectiles, just smash attacks, jabs, aerials, stuff like that, you deal like 2 to 5% extra damage. It's just a damage buff, but it's more of a defensive buff, because what happens if you have the spikes on, if your opponent makes contact with you, whether it be just by walking into you or through a move, like they attack you with a jab or something, they'll take about 5% damage, and they'll stagger when that happens. So essentially, it's just armor for the car. And then just a minor thing that it can do: if you run into the ball while the spikes are on, the ball will become attached to you, and it won't really do anything. It's more so just as a little reference to what it does in the games. So yeah, the spikes are just more of a buff move. He doesn't have the most offensive special move kit. It's more of a technical setup stuff. But I think his aerials are perfectly fine as being his only offensive tools. But oh well. I think I'm pretty satisfied with the moveset I came up with. So yeah, let's go into his final smash. As usual, I'm not going to put in too much detail into this, because this is more of a just core moveset focused thing. So yeah, his final smash is the goal, which once you use it, he charges forward, and any opponent he hits is taken into a cutscene where multiple Rocket League cars are hitting the soccer ball back and forth on the field, the soccer field from Rocket League, I mean. And eventually the car hits it into the goal, and all of the opponents are in the goal when that happens. And once the ball enters the soccer goal, there's a huge explosion like in the Rocket League games. So yeah, it's just that as a final smash. It kills the opponent like most other final smashes do. And moving on to his stage, which is the Soccer Dome, which is the default stadium in Rocket League. This is a big walk-off stage, although it's pretty interesting because the only blast zones are 2 soccer goals on either side of the field. You can't knock the opponent upwards into the blast zone because there's not one. The only blast zones are in the soccer goals. So yeah, you have to try to get them in there, and if you do manage to KO an opponent in them, there'll be a pretty big explosion, as I said earlier, that happens in the game once you get a goal, and it just damages whatever opponents are caught in it. Yeah, it's a pretty basic stage. I don't really go into too much detail with those either, because I kind of suck at coming up with stage ideas, but I digress. So yeah, and without further ado, let's finish things off by going over his music. A lot of the songs in Rocket League have lyrics in them, and for the simplicity of this, let's just say hypothetically that these songs would be instrumental. His main theme would be the Rocket League theme. I don't know if there would be a remix of it, but I'll play it here. Another song that he would have is Angel Wings. That'd probably be in there. And then the only other song I could really think of is called Darkness, and I'll play that here. And And with that being said, we're all done with the Rocket League Cars moveset. It took me a while to come up with it, but I'm pretty happy with the end result. Yeah, so next up I'm checking the list right now, and next up we have the Pokemon Zoroark from the Black and White games. So yeah, I'll see you guys probably not next week. I'll try to have it out 2 weeks from now. I kind of want to keep up the old schedule I had where it was every other week I upload a video to this series. But we'll just see. As I said, school just started for me again, so I don't know how that's going to turn out. But yeah, I'll just keep you guys updated throughout these videos. And once again, thank you guys so much for checking this out. If there's a character you want me to discuss, leave him in the comments section below. And if you're lucky, I might just end up doing a video on him. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.